of choice. Well, I feel like I'm on a trampoline here. Well, a very good morning, everybody. I'm not sure where I should go here, but I was shaking when I came in here, and I was wondering, am I just nervous or what is it? And I realized, no, I'm just cold. But as we filled up and the singing has warmed up, then, of course, things have become warmer, and I feel a bit more relaxed. So forgive me here if I'm pointing this way sometimes and sometimes that way. And I'm not ignoring anybody, but my head can only go in one direction at a time. I feel a little bit sorry because when Samuel introduced things at the beginning, he said he's just finished the harp workshop and he feels like he's dying. And then he said, yeah, Uncle Ron gave the lecture this week. So I hope that's not an omen of what's going to happen this morning. I have a simple question for everybody here. I'm sure many of you haven't yet reached this stage, but tell me, just a show of hands, how many of you do gardening? Quite a few, not everybody, but quite a few nevertheless. That's okay. Today the topic is My Road to Chungilguk, and it's really a message of hope. Although when I finish the first page of this, you might not think so. I'm just going to read a small quote from Father, and he says, I want you to understand that God gave Adam and Eve a textbook to learn from. And that textbook was nature and all its creatures. All things were created to be a manual from which Adam and Eve should learn. So all nature is a textbook from which Adam and Eve, and indeed all of us, should learn. So a large part of my talk today is about slugs. You love slugs. If it was snails, maybe not so bad. You can eat snails, but slugs, I don't know about that. Did you know that slugs have their own road to Chungilguk? Yeah, I'm going to tell you, don't worry. It goes from the edge of the lawn in my back garden, across an open patch of ground to the lettuce. And if they're lucky, they might get the Chinese cabbage first. Last year, can you believe this? Last year I planted over a couple of days 42 lettuce. Do you know how many we got to eat? None. The slugs certainly found their road to Chungilguk and they ate all the lettuce. I wouldn't have minded if there was at least one or two, but not one was left. I was angry. Yeah, that's what my wife would say, hungry. French, you know, with a little in front of the angry. Okay, so 42 lettuce and not one survived. Well, they did survive for the slugs, but certainly not for us. So for them it was paradise. You know, if you think of Milton, paradise, yeah, paradise lost for us anyway, but for the slugs, fine. Paradise, certainly. But this year I decided to make a change. I declared Waterloo. I declared Armageddon on the slugs. So what I did then, at the edge of our lawn, there's this kind of patch where we plant vegetables. We plant them. I'm not saying we eat them, but we plant them. And then there's, I put a netting around. I put this large netting around because, of course, our garden is also a kind of a crossing point between several gardens. So all the neighbors' cats do their business as they come passing through the garden. So I didn't want them doing their business on the lettuce patch. The neighbor has plenty of that already, and so, you know, from his experience, I learned the lesson. So I put the netting around. Netting is quite good because it does hinder the slugs, even if it doesn't stop them. So anyway, I put another layer of netting around the just inside that on the ground. So I know that if the slugs get past, if they leave the edge of the lawn on their road to Chungilguk, they've got to cross the first netting, and then they have to cross the second netting, and if they get across that, they have to cross a minefield of slug pellets. And can you believe it? They do. So then I decided to cover the lettuce with plastic bottles. You know, you drink your bottle, you cut it in half, and you put it on top, and theoretically that protects them. But the slugs managed to climb up over the top of that as well. So the worst thing then, and this is the most pathetic, after they've got all that way, then they have to encounter this grey-haired devil that comes out at 7:15 every morning after Hundoke with his 2 trowels, looking for them, catching them, and flicking them over the hedge. Paradise lost. Yeah, it's a challenge, but you know, when I think about this, I realize, my gosh, there's a parallel here. There's a parallel to what these slugs have to do to get to Chungilguk and what I have to do to get to Chungilguk. And of course, what I have to do is also what you have to do to get to Chungilguk. We have to cross our own minefields. And he may not be a grey-haired devil, but certainly the devil is hanging around somewhere to try to catch us before we reach the lettuce. So, if, and it's a big if, they do manage to get the lettuce, what they've done is opened up a way for the next generation, who are just waiting on the edge of the lawn to see if anybody made it through. And then they set out in droves. And I thought it was only in Wales that we had slugs, but I was talking to our brother Ashley earlier on, asking him how things are and how's the gardening going. And then he reminded me that he has a problem with slugs too. So, anyway, paradise lost, and maybe paradise regained. So, slugs have their road to Chungilguk. How do you and I fit into this? Well, as I just said, it is a similarity of journeys. We start off from some place, the edge of the lawn. We have some kind of destination. We're not exactly sure what Chungilguk is, but we do know when we get there, it's going to be fine. Maybe a bit like coming to the annual gathering, you know. We set off on our journey. We head down the motorway or whatever road we're going down. We have a clear destination. And when we get to this destination, what we expect to find, brothers, sisters, friends, nice weather, sports, fun, games, barbecues, and all the rest of it. You know, we do it with love, don't we? And that is really the essence of it all. It's love, because if love isn't there, it's all meaningless. Nobody would come here if they didn't experience some joy and some love from brothers and sisters from one another. So, yeah, we all set out on this journey. We have a clear destination, but somehow along the way, we know that there's hold-ups, traffic lights, roadworks, puncture. Maybe we get lost. The sat-nav takes us the wrong way. Eventually, though, we hope to get to our destination. So, of course, we have some idea when we think about Chungilguk. It's not some place we're actually going to. It's something we are creating. Do you agree? And that's hard work. But why I said at the beginning of my talk, my road to Chungilguk, and it's a message of hope. You know, when I look around here, and I see there's a lot of us have grey hair, or maybe not so much hair at all. But there's a lot of younger ones, second generation, and there's even third generation. Now, I'll come back to this in a little while, because this is really important. And it's this which is our hope. And I'm going to say something in a little while that I mentioned on the workshop to the youngsters, which I think we all need to hear, especially first generation needs to hear. But I'll come back to that in a little while. So as I said, it's a difficult road, but there's hope. On the workshop, I wasn't sure. The topic I was given initially was, who is God? How do I know God exists? How do we feel God in our lives? And if there's God, why is there suffering? Well, the first question, who is God? How can I talk about who is God? I mean, I might just as well say, who is Peter Graham? Honestly, how can I talk about God? I mean, I know Peter, I've known Peter for years, he's a great guy. But if somebody says, describe Peter, I mean, I could say all sorts of things about him. Mostly nice. No, all nice. Or maybe about any of you I could say nice things. But honestly, if you heard me talking to somebody about yourself, you might think, right, this guy really doesn't know me. And one of the exercises I gave them on the workshop was just to close their eyes for a moment and to look into their minds and have a look and see what you see. And I don't mean pictures, you know, the ideal, you know, the latest PlayStation or something. I'm talking about looking into your minds. This is what I said to them. Look into your minds and see if you can see you. And then tell me who you are. I said to this one young chap, Caleb, sitting in the front. Is Caleb here today, or is he somewhere else maybe? I said, you know, I was describing Caleb, you know, this is Caleb, you know, he looks like this, he's a handsome young guy, and so on and so on and so on. And it was great because when he was giving a little talk later on, he said, you know something I've learned? He said, everybody knows I'm handsome. But still, I said, you know, I don't know Caleb. I don't know any of you, really. And so when I thought talking about God, how can I say I know God? How can I talk about who God is? Am I so arrogant to think that I know who God is? And then I felt really sorry. You know, I felt, my goodness, poor God. You know, God has a problem here because he is trying to tell these youngsters who he is, but he has no voice. He has no arms and legs to walk up and down in between the, you know, the kids and explain things. How is God going to do that if he can't do it himself? He has to use people. He has to use me in that moment. And then I realized how pathetic the situation for God. Because he cannot tell people who he is unless I show them to the people. So that was a very humbling realization. I had many realizations in just an hour's talk with the children. Even Moses, when he spoke with God and said, God told him to go to Pharaoh and say, God sent you. And then Moses said, well, who shall I say sent me? And all God could say was, well, tell them I am sent you. I am who I am. Yeah, but God, you know, are you 6 foot tall? Are you 5'6"? Are you black hair, white hair? What do you look like? Nothing like that. Just tell them I am who I am. And then we realize it's really impossible to describe God. And even True Father said you can look in all the scriptures in the world. You can go through the spirit world. You can go all over the physical world and you will not find God. Can you believe that? Here we are because of God, and yet we can look anywhere and not find God. Unless we embody God. And when we embody God, you, my brothers and sisters, are God. You are God incarnate. As I strive to reach that point where God can speak through me and God can be incarnated through me. When Jesus walked on this earth, when the people said to Jesus, where is God? Show me God. What did he say? He said, if you've seen me, you've seen the Father. But he didn't say, if you've seen me, you've seen the mother. Why? Because Jesus only manifested one characteristic of God. That is the male characteristic of God. Of course, many other qualities, but the male character of God. Jesus had a difficult road to go to bring about the realization of the ideal that God wanted, and he could not do it. He died on the cross just 3 years after starting his mission. So another 2,000 years went by before God could find somebody else. And then finally, God found one man. And that one man was able to go the course to Cheong-il-guk. And at the same time, standing next to him was a woman who also had to go that course. You know, we hear stories of some of our leaders who spent time working with True Father. Maybe some of you former national leaders know what this is like. When President Song was our leader here before, and he talked about the time he spent 2 weeks in Barcelona in Spain with Father. And he said he was completely wiped out after that. Just 2 weeks with Father. Can you imagine 2 weeks trying to keep up with Father, and yet Father's whole life is absolutely trying to keep up with God, and True Mother, standing next to Father, has spent 50 years standing next to a man trying to keep going with him, quietly working alongside, behind, with True Father. What an incredible woman. I tell you, when I think from the time of Adam and Eve's fall until today, God's course to get to Cheong-il-guk has been a nightmare. I can't imagine how God felt the moment Adam and Eve fell. I can only imagine when I look at my children and see how they suffer, how they make mistakes, and how I feel when they make their mistakes. And if you see your children making mistakes, you know how it feels. You know how God feels in that moment. Because there is nothing worse than to see your child make a mistake and can do nothing about it. All the hopes and the joys that we have as a family, bringing up our children, hoping for the best, sometimes seeing the worst and knowing you can do nothing. How does God cope with that? Not just one time, but generation after generation after generation. To the point where God finally finds people who will listen to him, and he sends them, and they are murdered, they are butchered, they are tortured, and they are killed. And still, God has to keep going on that road to Cheong-il-guk. It's a nightmare. It's a nightmare even just to scratch into the surface of God's heart and discover what God feels in all of that. It just destroys you inside. And yet, we cannot stop. God could not stop. So then, coming back to the workshop, sorry, I was supposed to look at my watch when I started. You know, I know that as Samuel said, we don't have 3-hour sermons anymore. Well, nobody told me there was no 3-hour sermon. I did say I'd speak for 20 minutes, and then somebody said, well, Tom said, well, you can make it half an hour. But I forgot to look at the time when I started, so I don't even know how long I've been talking. Sorry, 5 minutes ago, was it? I should have stopped 5 minutes ago. No, I started. Okay, anyway, it doesn't matter, you know. With God, 1 day is like 1,000 years. 1,000 years is like 1 day. 5 minutes is like 3 hours. 3 hours, hopefully, is not like 5 minutes. So, yeah, Cheong-il-guk, everybody has to go this course. There is no shortcut. But you know why I said this is a message of hope? Because when I was looking at these children, And I realized that the whole issue for God was how to restore this lineage to arrive at the point where the original Adam and original Eve could appear and the true descendants could start to emerge. And when I was looking at the second generation on this workshop, I realized these are the fruit of that tree. These are the new lineage. These are what God has been striving for since the day of the beginning of creation. You know, in that workshop when I was talking to the children, my mind was being blown wide open, just looking at the children and seeing the realization of what it means to be here now in front of these people. And you know what I felt? And this is what I said to the children. I said, if your parents are not the most educated, if your parents don't have the best jobs, maybe we even sweep the roads. Maybe we don't have the best, biggest houses or the most expensive cars. Maybe we don't wear the best clothes. Maybe we have no pensions to speak of. Nothing to leave our descendants. But you know, it does not matter, because the one thing that you have done for your children is to connect to the true lineage, and they are part of God's lineage, God's children. That is more important than all the money in the universe, all the big mansions that you can own. That is more valuable than anything. And that's what I realized. When I looked at the second generation, my heart was in awe of this whole course that has taken place through history to get to this point where they are there sitting in front of me. And I realized it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if I have nothing. It doesn't matter if I end up as a pauper. It doesn't matter if I end up in some home somewhere totally forgotten, ignored. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter, because I was able to connect with the true tree of life and produce offspring that are connected to that tree. And that's what I felt was the great hope on our road to Changilguk. It's the hope that we see in the new branches that are sprouting, the new buds that are shooting up. Not just a second generation, but a third generation, and maybe a fourth generation somewhere. And when I think back to the time when I joined back in the 70s, I remember when we met in Row Lane Farmhouse. Some of you will remember this, how all the members from Europe, we were about 300 people. We had no idea what we were doing. We had no idea where we were going. It's just when Father said jump, we jumped. And when he said fall down, we fell down. And when he kicked us for falling down and said, get up and start running, we got up and started running. And we had no idea where we were running to. We just did it. But the amazing thing is that gradually we were growing. We were changing. And as a result of those changes, we could see a new generation coming. We could see the second generation, and we see the third generation, and we will see the fourth, and we will see that the old tree which is dying is going to die away. It's going to disappear. When Father made his last prayer and went to the spirit world, he didn't go there as a failure. He didn't go knowing that he hadn't finished. He went there knowing he had done everything God had asked him to do. And the beautiful thing for us, one of the reasons we have hope, is that our life does not stop when they put us in the ground, but it carries on in the spirit world. And even in the spirit world, we can come and we can help our descendants and raise them up forever. We are people with hope. We are people with life. And we are people like that because God has given it to us. So even if I speak and say how I understand God to be, maybe I don't know, but I will just express what my heart feels. And if God can work with that, great. If he can't work with it, then I have to say I'm sorry to God. But what I want is when you leave here today or tomorrow, whenever, don't worry about who you are. Don't worry about what you are. Don't worry about what you've got, whether you're rich or poor, you're high or you're low. Just be grateful that you could be the ones to meet true parents, accept true parents, and unite with true parents and create this new lineage that is our hope and the hope of man for the future. I hope sincerely that our children, even if they don't understand it today, even if they don't understand it tomorrow, they will understand it eventually. Because we will not stop. From here, from the spirit world, from wherever we are, we will not stop. And the great thing always is we are people with hope. So although our road to Chungilguk is not a straightforward, smooth path, you come to Wales and you've got hills and valleys. You climb the top of a hill and you think you've made it, and then blow me down, you see another hill which is even higher. And before you get up that one, you have to go down. So we go down in the valley, and then we go up again. Renewing ourselves, refreshing ourselves, believing in ourselves, and believing in each other. Why? Because we are the brothers and sisters of among God's children. We are not vagrants. We are the ones that God has invested in. We are the ones who are loved by God. And therefore, we can love one another because God has loved us. God has loved us. How do I know? Because people like Jesus who went to the cross, even if I was the only lost person in the world, and it would have taken the death of Jesus to die on the cross to save me, he would have done so anyway. If Father had come to this world because I was the only lost person, he would have gone exactly the same course, if needs be, to save me. That's how precious our road to Chungilguk is, and what we have gained, what we have learned, what we have been given. We are so blessed, so blessed. We are so blessed individually. We are so blessed as families. We are so blessed because we are a tree that is flourishing. We are no longer a branch that is losing its life, ready to fall off the tree. Keep that hope. Keep that belief. Keep that trust. And we will all be there in the kingdom of heaven with God our Father and with our true parents. That's what I believe. That's what my heart tells me. That's where we are going. Chungilguk. We are going there. We are building it. We are creating it by going the same course as our true parents. So, just to bring things to a conclusion, I forgot where I was in my pages. In fact, I forgot to look at them after the first page. Which is typical, isn't it? You spend ages and ages stressing and writing and crossing out and rewriting, crossing out, and then just when you think you've got it all done, you don't even use it. But it doesn't matter. I just want to finish with one thing. This is something, last week I watched, and I'm sure you've probably seen it too, these Peace TV videos that come each week. There's a few words from True Mother. She doesn't say much, but she really is the embodiment of wisdom. But what is incredible is that she continues saying what Father has always said, except in a much more succinct way. She was talking to the global Top Gun trainees, And she said, 40 to 50 years of missionary history has set down deep roots. Grow well, she said, and build the greatest Chungilguk, where we proudly attend true parents before the world and before God. Chungilguk is to be a nation where all 7 billion people of the world attend Heavenly Parent together. Can you imagine the future when this place is too small? Maybe we will have our Chungilguk festivals over 2 or 3 days with loads of fields, camping everywhere. The only thing that I hope is when they send out the promotion material, they show a few more elderly people and one old man sitting with a child on his lap, and he didn't even have grey hair. I was a bit disappointed because when the presentation was sent out to show to all the members at the Sunday service, at our Sunday service, there was one 21-year-old, there were 2 middle-aged, and 6 of us pensioners at that particular service. And the pensioners, when they looked at all the images of the sports and the jumping and all that, I think that's probably why they didn't come today. They were intimidated by it. We need to show something for everybody. So as much as I love my brother Franklin, his was the picture. I would like to have seen... That's what I missed. Okay. So anyway, what I'd like to see is the day when we have to, maybe all the fields in the neighborhood over 2 or 3 days. It'll happen. We'll have our annual gatherings in Wales, in Scotland, because we will just be too many. Maybe not next year. Maybe not the year after, but it will happen. There'll be too many. So Mother says, Chungilguk is to be a nation where the 7 billion people of the world attend Heavenly Parent together. To do that, can you just stay still and watch the spot where you sit? You must run, she said. You must fly. Therefore, you must save your brothers and sisters in all parts of the world who do not know true parents who do not know true parents, and they are miserably dying, the people. She said, I said this repeatedly. In this generation, everything will be short-lived if you go alone. You must go together. You must communicate. You must unite. There, true parents are at the center. She said, there is a cure internally and externally that can solve all the problems in every part of the world. I hope that you will stand in the center of the mainstream of Chungilguk and shout out before the world. And that's why even today, I feel, oh my God, what shall I say? How can I say it? But I can't help but shout out, because that's what True Mother is saying. Shout out to the world. So maybe they can't hear me outside Cleve House, but at least we can start here. We can shout out. Imagine if we all shouted out. So let us go forward and do as True Mother asks us. With our God, with our Father and Mother, and with Heavenly Parents' love. Let us make sure that my road to Chungilguk is a road filled with love, and we will do it. It will happen. Please join me in a prayer. Our beloved Heavenly Parent and our beloved true parents, we are so grateful to gather together for our annual gathering, and even though we are not huge numbers, nevertheless what we represent is the whole nation. And we are filled, or hopefully we are filled with your spirit and desire and determination to go forward to our own Chungilguk, to find that place in our hearts where you reside, where heaven exists, and spread that to the world around us, to embrace people as your children, your lost children, and through your love try to bring them like a magnet, draw them into your kingdom. We look back on our lives and we see how miserable that we've been, how bleak and unfortunate our path has been in trying to follow true parents, trying to fulfill what they've asked us to do. And so often we have not been able to accomplish what you asked. And yet, Heavenly Parent, we are still here. We are still here. We are still fighting. We are still driving forward. And the fact that we have second generation and third generation is a testimony to that fact, that we are here and we will keep being here for you. Heavenly Parent, please allow us to learn to know your heart. Allow us to embody your spirit and to express your heart wherever we go. Heavenly Parent, please, please be with us in these couple of days. Allow your spirit to find its joy, its peace in the hearts of each brother and sister, young or old. Heavenly Parent, we are truly, truly grateful. And now as we conclude this talk, we want to offer it to you with our gratitude. And I do this representing everybody here. And this I report in my name, Ron German, of a blessed central family, Aju. Okay, thank you.